Welcome to the Money GPS. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Food is on everyone's mind, not just when your belly is rumbling, but when you actually go to the store and you've got to buy that food. When you choose to make those purchases, you are feeling it every single day. The first thing I want to look at is the warnings that have come out from these major institutions. The second thing is the emerging economy crisis that's happening right now at this time. And what we are seeing is simply fanning the flames. The third is the inflation escalation, specifically when we look at what the central banks are doing. I'm going to bring that all together here in this episode. Let's begin. Dow plunges more than 900 points for its worst day since 2020, falls for a fourth straight week. Now, what I wanted to show you here is multifaceted because number one, it fell, if I look at this really quickly, it is in the Dow Jones case, 981 points. 981 points. They said it's more than 900. You see, because they didn't want to say it fell 1,000 points. No, that would be wrong. At the same time, they published an article at 4:04 p.m., just after the market closed, about one of the Fed members, we'll talk about that in a second, saying that, you know what, we don't want to go ahead with the whole 75 basis points, but we definitely want to do 50 basis points. They published that at 4:04 on the weekend, so the market can digest it and all of those things can happen after. You see how they do these things? Small little pieces add up. That's a whole different story. That's part of the propaganda and the whole machine and the way it works. This is only one simple factor among all others. What we are looking at today is an inflationary forces that are taking hold. Why? What's going on? Well, there are many things, of course, the things you see in the media every single day. But what about all that money printing that happened? Are we just going to ignore it? No, of course not. We need to understand what's underlying all of it. Now, the Rockefeller Foundation's Shaw sees massive global food crisis. Now, I have said in the past many things about this institution. We will leave that alone for this video. But you know that it is in fact the case. Whether it's contrived, whether this is something that could be resolved easily, that's besides the point. What's important is what you've got to spend when you go to the store, and that keeps going up. And the fact is, look at how many countries are reliant on either Russia or Ukraine for their grains. It is very worrisome. Ukraine war, World Bank warns of human catastrophe, food crisis. Look at it. You're getting the Rockefeller Foundation, the World Bank, the UN. I mean, everybody, basically all of the major institutions are saying the same thing. Now, like I said, you could say one thing or another about these institutions, and I have in the past. Okay, I put that on black and white. I've written in my books and so on. But we also have to understand part of that is simply mentioning facts. Okay, you can't get around that. And the absolute fact today is that prices are too high, and that affects people in the bottom 50%. Then you look at the bottom 80% and even the bottom 90%. This is hitting people where it hurts. And then we're getting to this. So I did the previous video. I talked about what was happening here. There's all these different things happening in Russia, fire here, buildings, burning down. And many people were mentioning this. I should have included in that video. I didn't. But anyway, so I wanted to just mention really quickly. Food shortages magnified by a string of destroyed food processing facilities. They do talk about this in California, one example. An airplane crashes into Idaho's processing facility. They give you many different examples in here. I don't have time to get into it all. Another fact, we have to understand this happens, okay? Warehouses go on fire. Buildings go on fire. It does happen. Is it possible that there is something else happening at this time? Yes, it is possible. Is that 100%, understood? No, but it's worth mentioning. It's worth talking about. Fire contained at California food plant. Evacuations remain. Plane crashes into Idaho potato and food processing plant, killing the pilot. 50,000 pounds of food is destroyed after fire ripped through Maricopa food pantry, and this Rio's fresh onion warehouse damaged in fire. So all of these have happened recently. All big stuff, right? All important. Let's get into the next subject. It is, of course, very connected. But let's talk about this for a second. You heard about Sri Lanka. You heard about Kazakhstan. You heard about Peru. You heard about all these different countries that, for one reason or another, have had to deal with some sort of upheaval, civil unrest. This goes on mostly in developing nations and then erupts really quickly. But it can happen anywhere. Don't be fooled. This is what you need to worry about. To be quite honest with you, it hurts to read it, but you gotta man up, okay? Hunger and blackouts are just the start of an emerging economy crisis. Fed hikes and debt piles add to the risks for developing nations. Some are already sliding into turmoil. Turmoil triggered by rising food and energy prices is already gripping countries like Sri Lanka, Egypt, Tunisia, and Peru. It risks turning into a broader debt debacle and yet another threat to the world's fragile recovery. There are people lining up here, in this case, Sri Lanka. If you're from one of these countries that is experiencing this, please let us know around the world what you are seeing. I've gotten replies from people in Sri Lanka. I talk to people in every country. Let me know, let others know what you see. This is the grassroots channel where I have learned as much from you as you have learned from me. I am a student and I'm simply bringing you the information. If you appreciate that, hit that thumbs up button. That's how we got to do this. That's how we got to break through this algorithm. Compounding the danger is the most aggressive monetary tightening campaign the Federal Reserve has embarked on in 2 decades. I would go even further. I would go even further than that. Okay. Rising US interest rates mean a jump in debt servicing costs for the developing nations right after they board billions. This tends to spur capital outflows. And on top of it all, the stark reality that war in Europe, which is driving the latest food and energy shock, shows few signs of ending. Some say this could go on for years. Okay, you could see a handful of emerging economies, Pakistan, Tunisia, Ethiopia, and Ghana, are in immediate danger of following suit after Sri Lanka defaulting on its bonds. So this is affecting multiple people. It's not just, hey, I'm not going to be able to buy salad or lettuce at the store. I got to choose, whatever that is. No, we're talking about a cascading event. But let's be honest, here we are, something like, let's say 8 minutes into this video. The vast majority of even the people who are willing to click on the video have already given up. These people cannot be helped. So you must help yourself and your family, and that means being prepared. That means having the provisions today, right now. Have you already started those preparations? If not, please get wise to this. All the links will be in the description. If you want to check this out and look at it in detail, you can see right here the countries I just mentioned. It all depends on what happens, how it unravels. All I know is that country after country after country is put into deep debt, and then the regular people suffer. This is what I've covered, put it in black and white in 2012, January 2012, and I've been covering it ever since. I don't care what people say about me. This is life and death, literally, for some people. I'm waking up. Are you? I'm getting a little flustered. Year of living dangerously. Risks for emerging markets have multiplied this year. Global food inflation rate, oil price, emerging market spread, you can see that, and the number of countries in debt distress. All of these, one by one by one. Canada farmers seen defying oilseed rally, slashing canola acres. Drought and pricey fertilizer to spur a shift to wheat and soybeans. Canola futures trade near all-time highs amid strong demand. I could make my opinion here and say, you know what, I don't have canola, so who cares? That's not really the way it works, okay? We need to see an abundance of food. We need to see that. It's never a good thing. What about this? Indonesia bans palm oil exports as global food inflation spikes. Now, I don't want palm oil. I don't want a product that contains palm oil, but that's not the point. The point is that prices are rising. By the way, that's a lot of the exact same product to be on one shelf. You notice that? I just realized that. I don't know what that is. It looks kind of like Fortune. Does anybody know what that is? Chips or something? That's a lot of the same exact product. Ban was totally unexpected, India Trade Group says. Then we have this, water conflicts on the rise. People need to be aware of this. Water, arguably more important than food. I don't know how you want to balance one against the other, but this is so critical, and yet it's so overlooked. And if you just think back for a second. I always like to do this. The year 2000, right? Think of water. Just think of water as a product, bottled water. Nobody would have ever thought that you would have bottles of water selling for $4. I mean, it just was crazy. Anyway, this is just showing us water conflicts. To give you a few examples here, Asia being the number one, whether it's a dam, whether it's rivers, whether, whatever, it all depends on the situation, but it's going to be a crisis. Many have said future wars will be fought over water. Well, there are skirmishes and things that have already happened and are happening right now. Ukraine lobbies for cuts in Russian Nord Stream 1 gas shipments. This is big as well because you can see the changes that are happening. Nord Stream 2 never came online. Nord Stream 1, are we going to see a disruption there? I tried to get through that as quick as I could. What are we talking about right now? Well, let me say, what the Federal Reserve is doing, what the ECB is even potentially doing, is super important. Fed dashes cold water on the shock and awe hike of 75 basis points. But what about 50? Oh, now that looks likely. You see, there was a coordinated effort. And by the way, I thank you for being this far into the video. There was a coordinated effort just over the last few days to start talking about 75. If you notice that. Bullard was talking about 75 and a few others, Powell and Mester and so on. Just mentioning 75 because why? 25, 25, 25, 25. The thought of 50 spooked the markets, right? Thought of it. So they're throwing out 75 so that when they go to 50, well, it's not so bad. It's only 50. Fed's Mester backs the methodical rate hikes, not a 75 basis point move. Overly aggressive approach is not what the economy needs. 50 is okay, she says. But 75, no. Stocks succumb to bond market rout as Fed inflation hawks circle. I wouldn't call them hawks, but I guess it's all relative. So what's happening right now is the market is taking a beating like I covered in the first place, okay? It's still, let's be clear. You look at it where it is in terms of its all-time high, absolutely. But take a step back now and understand you're looking at the broad markets. What about certain stocks? The stocks that performed really, really well from March 2020, let's say to the end of the year or something, or that 6-month kind of, what's happening here in the world, that period of time, those stocks, many of them are at where they were during that period and they have had no growth, or they're actually even worse. Netflix, Peloton, other stocks. Even Amazon is at the same level it was at in 2020. Like, people need to realize this. One of those stocks which has defied gravity and all that is Tesla. They've done very well. They're around 1,000 at the time of this recording. You can look at Amazon at 28.87. This takes us back to June of 2020. Okay, so we'll see what happens ultimately. I don't know, but this is just showing us that there is cause for concern. There are these, rules of gravity, right? What goes up can come down. What is the number one driving force? And that is the Federal Reserve's activities. amount of money that they're printing, and the amount, the interest rate that they're currently at. People need to get wise to this. People need to be aware of this. And I hope that you are one of those people that's taking action. If you appreciate the information, simply hit that thumbs up button. When you do, you support the channel. I want to thank you for that. Also, check out my playlist, How to and Solutions. This is fantastic. It's got a lot of different stuff. If you want to learn how to sell on Amazon, okay, I give away a free course. It is at the AmazonGPS.com, totally 100% free, so that you can learn how to not necessarily be reliant on one physical location for your income. So much more. Check out the playlists. I'll see you on the next one. Take care.